In this episode, you're going to learn what imposter syndrome is and what it's not, why it hits hardest when you're doing something brave, how it shows up in coaching, business, relationships, and confidence. I'm also going to teach you the B code mindset shift that shuts the fraud voice down and how to flip the switch in real time when doubt tries to take over. Have you ever heard those voices in your head? You know, the ones that say, "Who do you think you are?" Or "You're not ready. You're not qualified enough. People are going to judge you. You're going to fail." We're going to talk about something that affects so many women, especially the ones with big hearts, big dreams, and a calling that's louder than their fear. In today's episode, we're going to break down how imposter syndrome shows up, especially when you're stepping into the next version of yourself. And here's the truth. Imposter syndrome doesn't mean that you're not capable. It usually means you're expanding. And I'm also going to be sharing my personal truth about some of the biggest times that imposter syndrome tried to take me out. And I'm going to teach you how to use my signature tool, Flip the Switch, to stop spiraling, stop shrinking, and start owning who you are. After all, this is the B Code by Tiffany. This episode of the B Code was brought to you by my upcoming book, How to Become a Bitch and Live Happily Ever After. In this book, I reclaim bitch as an acronym. It's not about attitude, it's about freedom. And inside, I take you deeper into each of these 5 pillars, expanding them into a full journey back to yourself. This book is my heart, my story, and the framework that has helped countless women transform their lives. It comes out this year, but you don't have to wait. I created a free B Code starter guide just for you. 5 pillars, 5 practices, 1 powerful shift, so that you can start stepping into your bold, independent, tenacious, confident, and honest self, which just happens to be the best version of you. It's yours at blossomlifeco.com/B Code starter guide. Download it today and start living your B Code. So, imposter syndrome is not always low confidence. Sometimes it's grief. Grief for the old version of you that stayed quiet. Grief for the part of you that learned that it was safer to be liked than to be loud. Grief for the younger you who got judged the moment she showed up with too much emotion, too much personality, and even too much passion. And when you finally start rising, that old conditioning doesn't disappear peacefully. It actually panics, because the moment you start becoming her, you start becoming visible. And visibility can feel unsafe, especially when you've spent years shrinking. So imposter syndrome shows up with one job: to pull you back into the version of you that feels acceptable. But let me tell you, acceptable isn't your assignment, especially when you're following the B Code. So we're going to talk about my story and when imposter syndrome hit me. And I'm going to get real with you. When I first started coaching, I didn't feel like this confident powerhouse every day. And I have to admit, even at times today, I still get a little bit of doubt. But guess what? I felt called. And I also felt terrified. So I would hear thoughts like, "Who are you to coach other women? And there are other coaches who know way more than you. What if you can't help them? What if you mess up?" And I had to remind myself that I don't need to be perfect to be powerful, to show up. I just need to be present. And then it happened again when I started this podcast, when I started putting my face and my voice on social media. That imposter voice came right back, just like it had never left. What if nobody listens? What if people talk about you? What if you sound stupid? What if you're not enough? But this time, I knew something different. That wasn't my intuition. That was my fear trying to protect me from my own expansion, and I wasn't going to let it. So I flipped the switch, and I showed up anyway. And there are so many other examples in my life that I will be talking about in other podcasts where imposter syndrome showed up. And guess what? I worked through it. And this is what I want to teach you in today's episode. Okay, so here's the B code breakdown for imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome isn't just one feeling. It actually shapeshifts, and it shows up differently depending on what part of you is trying to rise. And that's why I want to break this down through the full BITCH code, because every letter reveals a different way that women talk themselves out of their own power. So B for bold. Imposter syndrome shows up in boldness as hesitation. You feel the urge to speak up, but you swallow it. You want to take the leap, but you wait for a sign. You want to post the video, start the business, set the boundary, ask for what you deserve, but your fear says, "Who do you think you are?" Let me tell you the truth. Bold women aren't fearless women. They're women who choose themselves even while fear is talking. Boldness is a moment that you stop asking for approval and you start giving yourself permission. I for independent. Imposter syndrome shows up here as over-relying on others to validate your decisions. So it looks like asking everyone what they think before you trust yourself, or needing reassurance before you move, or waiting for someone to co-sign your worth, and even doubting your own instincts. Because somewhere along the way you learned, it's safer when someone else decides. But independence is a mindset. It's you saying, "I trust myself, even if nobody claps yet. I can handle the consequences of my growth. And I don't need permission to choose what's best for me because I already know." Imposter syndrome attacks independence because once you trust yourself, you stop settling. So let's talk about T for tenacious. Imposter syndrome shows up in tenacity as quitting too soon. Not because you're lazy and not because you're scared it won't work, but it sounds like, what's the point? Who am I kidding? I always mess things up. I knew I couldn't do this. And the second it gets uncomfortable, you start pulling back. But tenacity is what you do after the excitement fades. It's what you do when nobody sees it yet. And it's what you do when you're building in silence. Tenacity says, "I'm not stopping just because I'm doubting. I can be scared and still be consistent. I finish what I start." Imposter syndrome wants you to stop right before that major breakthrough. Let's talk about C for confident. Imposter syndrome shows up as comparison. Confidence gets attacked when you start watching other women and thinking, she's prettier, she's more successful, she's more qualified, she's more put together, and you start shrinking in your own lane. But real confidence doesn't come from believing you're better than anyone else. It comes from believing that you belong right where you are. Confidence is walking into a room and not needing to prove anything. It's saying, "I don't have to earn my worth. I am allowed to take up space. My voice matters here." Imposter syndrome hates confident women because confident women stop apologizing for even existing. Let's talk about H for honest. This is where it gets real because imposter syndrome thrives in dishonesty. Not dishonesty to others, but dishonesty to yourself. It shows up when you pretend you're fine, but you're doubting everything. When you tell the world that you're strong, but privately you feel like you're falling apart. And when you act like you don't care, but you do. Honesty is a moment that you stop performing and you start telling the truth. "I'm scared, but I'm still showing up. I don't feel ready, but I'm going anyway. I've been shrinking and I am done." Honesty is powerful because it breaks the shame cycle. And shame is the fuel imposter syndrome runs on. When you're honest, you take your power back. Imposter syndrome isn't you being broken. It's you being conditioned. It's the residue of every time you were told that you were too emotional, too loud, too much, too intense, too needy, too whatever. So you learned to dim, to edit yourself, to be digestible, to be easy. But the B code doesn't teach women how to be easier to swallow. It teaches women how to be fully expressed. And if you're feeling imposter syndrome right now, it's not a sign that you should stop. It's a sign that you're standing at the edge of the woman that you're becoming. And I'm so damn proud of you. Now to my flip the switch technique. Okay, so this is the part that we stop letting that voice run the show, because imposter syndrome will sound convincing. It's going to sound logical, it's going to sound like common sense, but it's not truth. It's fear dressed up as facts. So when imposter syndrome shows up, it usually sounds like, I'm not ready. I don't know enough yet. I'm not as good as her. People are going to judge me. What if I fail? What if I look stupid? Who am I to do this? And this is where we flip the switch, because in the B code, we don't entertain spirals. We don't negotiate with self-doubt, and we don't obey insecurity. We actually interrupt it, we rewire it, and we replace it. And here's the switch. I don't need to feel ready. I need to be willing. I am allowed to learn while I lead. My story makes me qualified in a way a certificate never could. Their opinion is not my authority. If I fail, I learn. If I learn, I grow. If I grow, I win. I don't need perfection. I need practice. I'm not here to be liked by everyone. I'm here to be fully me. And here's the most important flip of all. So when you say to yourself, or when you hear your voice in your head say, who am I to do this? It becomes, who am I not to do this? Because if you've survived what you've survived, if you've healed what you've healed, if you've grown into the woman that you've become, you're not behind, you're not late, you're not pretending, you are evolving. And imposter syndrome is simply the old version of you trying to pull you back into the safety of smallness. But guess what? We don't live there anymore. So here are some key takeaways from today's episode. Imposter syndrome is not a stop sign. It's a threshold. And the louder the calling, the louder the fear tries to get. Bold means you move even while doubt is talking. And independent means you trust yourself without needing constant validation. And tenacious means you don't quit just because it gets uncomfortable. Confident means you stop comparing and you start owning your own lane. Honest means that you tell the truth about what you feel and you choose yourself anyway. And flip the switch isn't about pretending that you're not scared, but it's about refusing to shrink. And I want you to know that you're not broken. You don't need fixing. What you need is remembering. Remembering how to tap into your worth, your voice, your power. And that's what we're going to do here together, here on this podcast. Because you are the heroine of your own story. I'm just here to remind you. So I hope you tune in and join me every other week to get your dose of truth, empowerment, and perhaps a gentle nudge to become the woman you were always meant to be.